Welcome to episode 190 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Arth from the Warcraft Hunters Union.
And I'm Darkbrew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
And I'm Alexander from the Hunting Party Podcast.
And today is Saturday, October the 12th, 2013. And if you want to participate in the chat room and have your name read on the air, poorly, I might add, just create a cool huntery name and join in the fun.
Speak for yourself. I'm reading them again this week. Joining us today, we have Erlina Alderanya, Alexander Arthu, oh, those are us, Aurelius, BM Jager, Kev, Chiame, Havtor, Induates, Joe B, Ligerwolf, Lynx, President Obama, nice to have you, Slugslinger, and Zero Mess. I guess he doesn't have a whole lot to do right now with the government being shut down, so he's listening to the podcast, and we appreciate that, Mr. President.
Yeah, they're not even talking again.
And our lovely moderator, as always, is Ollie Sonder. You can send your questions into Ollie in a private message by left-clicking her name, selecting PM, then typing in the new tab, or you can send your question to huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com, and we'll try to get to it on a future show. Let's see. Now, we're soliciting some input from the chat room today, so if you ask a question, go ahead and accompany it with. So we have some leaked news from the WoW movie to share today, and one of them that we're going to be talking about is that we believe Colin Farrell is confirmed, or not confirmed, but very strongly.
Yeah, it's rumored. It sounds like it's a very strong rumor. And again, this is total like friend of a friend of a friend, cousin, uncle kind of deal. But someone who I used to raid with lives in Canada, and I guess they're doing some filming up there. And he said they're starting to pour a lot of money into it. And one of his customers apparently, allegedly, works on the set, and said they were all. A memo was circulated saying basically don't feed the actors, and it specifically mentioned Colin Farrell's name.
Yeah. So our question is, if you submit a comment or question, what role do you think Colin Farrell will play or should play in the WoW movie? So there's a few others that we might talk about, but he's the only really recognizable name amongst the group.
There's a few others.
None that I recognize right away.
Yeah, if you go to IMDb, he is in the rumored list. So, but it's like I said, this may be a pretty concrete thing, but they haven't. No one's certainly announced anything about roles and things, but I don't know. I feel pretty good about this one, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So if you submit a question or comment, tell us that as well. And we do have a couple announcements today, and the primary one is that next week we will have RogerBrown from Method, who had the world first 25-man heroic garrosh kill. So next week he'll be joining. He's the hunter from the guild Method. He'll be joining us on the 19th, next Saturday, and a week from that we will have Big Red Kitty. That'll be October 26th, and I think most of our regular listeners already know who BRK is, but he's sort of the godfather of hunter bloggers.
He is, yeah. The really the granddaddy. In I think many people's views, he's the one that sort of kicked off the whole firestorm of he's the one that sort of made it. Made you want to love your hunter. You know what I mean? He's the one that sort of said, hey, it's fun to play a hunter, it's fun to love a hunter, and it's fun to write about a hunter. And he's the one that really got all of this started and influenced a lot of people, such as myself and Frost and a lot of people that are out here blogging and doing things about hunters today.
Absolutely. And we were originally scheduled to have a guest this week, but they weren't able to make it. There was a scheduling conflict, but we have some others that are going to be coming on. A while back, we had sort of toyed with the idea of bringing on a new co-host, and while that hasn't materialized, we did receive a few applications from people who are relatively qualified to do something like this. So we're going to be trying to bring them in, I don't know if one at a time or in groups or whatever, just to add some extra voices that either have some hunting experience, podcasting experience, or both, which is the case with, I think, pretty much everyone that applied or emailed us with interest in it. So
Yeah.
just to get some different voices on. Originally we were going to have one of them on this week. It wasn't able to happen, but not an idea that we're letting go by the wayside. So you can look forward to that, and just some different views from around the hunter community for people who have either written about it or talked about the hunter class in the past.
Yeah. Also, and I know we sometimes joke about not reading your emails, and you've seen the media where we're not terribly great about always getting to your emails on the air, but if you have questions for BRK and or Roger Brown, please email us those to
Yes.
huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com, and I guarantee you we'll be sure to ask them on the show.
And it's worth a look before next week. I posted the video of Method's world first kill up on the WHU. I actually posted 2 25-man heroic kills. There was the world first, and then a different guild that had the U.S. first. And I'll be honest, the U.S. first is actually a much cleaner kill, but it came later. So if you want to see the absolute first, Methods is, not to take anything away from Method, because they're, a world first heroic guild, but they finished the fight, no joke, with 1 person alive.
Oh, really? It was that close?
It was that close, and they went absolutely berserk when they got the achievement and there was only 1 person still up. So it's worth a view to see that, because the absolute just spontaneous joy from all 25 of them for like a minute and a half after they did it's real fun to watch. But it's not the most textbook kill. I forget the name of the guild who had the U.S. first, even though I posted it. But
I want to say it was Blood Legion, maybe. Is that right?
It sounds like it might be right, yeah. But in any case, theirs is, I think they only had like 4 or 5 down by the end of the fight, and it looks much more together for some of the phases. So if you're looking for like, oh, this is how this guild does it, the U.S. first might be the way to go. But Methods was a lot of fun to watch.
Cool, yeah, and we sort of mentioned this last week. I believe Method had 2 hunters.
They did.
Kill, so.
They did. You can see him on the meters. Roger Brown actually goes down at some point in the fight. He's among like the first 5 or 6 to die, it looks like, and so he kind of disappears from the meters eventually. But you can see they jump back and forth between different people recording it, and you can see on the DPS meters the hunters there. And I think the other guy finished like 3rd. The other hunter, and it was, of course, both of them were obviously contributing, and they were taken on this kill, so that's a good sign.
Cool, yeah, but that is a good sign. It's like I said, I think hunters are actually doing pretty well so far this patch. I think Blizzard kind of accomplished their goals to some degree here in terms of hunters' competitive DPS.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in a pretty good place. The news we have today is very general WoW news, because it's really been quiet on the hunter front since, before 5.4, and then right after it dropped was a firestorm of hunter news, but all classes, not just hunters. So we had a lot to discuss. And then really since 5.4 dropped, the only thing we've had is those buffs to the hotfix to marksman, to Chimera, and it was one other. Oh, it was explosive shot too, but it was a much smaller buff. So
yeah, Chimera shot was the one that got the big buff.
Sure, but really that's been the only thing that's happened since 5.4. The tweets, the hot fixes, I haven't seen anything come across for hunters. So it's really been kind of quiet since then, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If they're having to deal with a bunch of hunter stuff, it probably means there's problems. So.
Yeah, there's even 5.4.1, I guess, went up on the PTR, and so in addition to hotfixes, they actually have a little small patch up on the PTR, and I think it's mainly to implement some new features for the Refer a Friend program, but there are a few class changes, but nothing for hunters, and it just seems minor stuff overall. So
yeah, if anything comes across, we'll let you know. But yeah, I think at this point we're pretty settled in. It looks like they're not going to be doing a whole lot.
Yeah, and I mean, Bendak did a scatter shots column this week, and he talked a little bit about marksman, and I think he posted a few numbers, and just kind of interesting to see that he's sort of showing it within the margin of error at this point in terms of DPS, which is, say, if you're a big fan of marksman, which I'm not, but I mean for a lot of people are, it might be worth checking out.
It was actually surprising to see how close the numbers were in that article that he came up with, and it was It was female dwarf sims, I think, was what
Yes.
he was working with. So, which is a very good tool. It's not always going to translate one-to-one to a raid environment, but what he was coming up with was that marksman is perfectly okay, and all three specs are within the margin of error. And I think a couple times, like, marksman came out ahead of the other two, which is surprising because that's not what we're seeing live. But that could also be part of a sort of selection bias. So all the hunters are playing this, so that's what we see the best numbers coming from.
Right.
Whereas if they were all playing marksman, it would be the opposite. So I think that's a really cool sign, and a sign that, yeah, if you do want to jump back and forth between the various specs to do whatever you want, you're probably going to be within a very close range. On a lot of fights, it'll be within RNG, so you won't even notice a difference necessarily week to week doing different specs.
Exactly. I mean, if you go marksman and you're not pulling your weight, the issue probably isn't the spec at this point. It's you and your skill in playing marksman relative to the other two specs at this point, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anyway, there's lots of ways to figure that out too. Like you said, you could just spend some time at a target dummy. You can also go into the proving grounds and try that out with the various specs too, as a way to kind of test your mettle and see how you perform.
Yeah. So that's good news, I think, and Bendak's doing a good job so far covering this stuff in interesting
he's really
ways.
Because Frost did pretty big shoes to fill in terms of everything that he did for the hunter community, but not just writing scattered shots, but he's really, I think I've enjoyed what I've read from him so far, and I think he's doing a good job, and he's filling in that slot nicely. So that was a good pickup for by WoW Insider.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to him.
Well, I think too, Frost was doing scattered shots and the WHU, and I think there was a couple people who were like, "Hey, Arth, you gonna do the scattered shots thing now?" I was like, hell no. So I'm happy to only do a portion of what he was doing at his peak of hunter blogging. There's some of the testing and theory crafting that he got into that I never quite went down that rabbit hole quite as much, even though I understood some of the math behind it. So
yeah, I was always like that too. I understood what I was reading, but I was not good at theory crafting, coming up with the information myself.
So it's nice to see there's a lot of different resources out there now, so it doesn't have to all fall on the shoulders of one or two people, I think. So that's the really good news. We have things like female dwarf now. You can still go on, elitist jerk. Some people don't necessarily like that, but they still have an active theory crafting community, and I know Zahara pops in there from time to time to discuss stuff with them. So it's there's a lot of interconnectivity between the different elements in the community.
And there's the simulation craft, and now Ask Mr. Robot too. So there's any number of site tools that exist now that you can go and have them do some of this math for you. Though I've been using Ask Mr. Robot, and it's kind of interesting right now, and we've sort of talked about this a little bit, the whole crit versus haste. And right now, their default weights are to do haste a little bit higher. They weighted a little bit higher than crit.
I think for Beastmaster though.
For Beastmaster, yeah.
I actually don't know what they say for Marksman, but I know they have crit higher than haste for survival.
Oh, they do. Okay, I haven't really spec'd it for survival. Which, that's good and it's bad. I mean, I almost wish it was the same for all three because it makes life a little easier, right? Because, and especially if you go by the recommendations, if you're BM, it's going to recommend, it basically says, hey, any yellow gem sockets, go ahead and start putting agility haste gems. It basically, but if you weight crit a little higher, it's going to do the opposite and say, hey, put an agility crit bonus in there. And it seems to like to recommend you go for your set bonuses regardless of what stat they give, if it's mastery or whatever. It seems to recommend that you do that, which I always find interesting, which is a little bit counter to what we've always recommended, even what Frost used to recommend, which is to say, hey, if it's not an agility set bonus, then just put a red gem in there and go for a pure agility. But
yeah, it's so close though that I think you'll probably be okay either way. But I would default to whatever Ask Mr. Robot says if you're in doubt.
Yeah, so I've been giving it a shot. I like the add-on. I like the fact that it has the one button reforge. It'll reforge all your stuff for you, which that in and of itself makes it worth using. Makes using the add-on worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, what else? We've continued with the HCERP on the WHU. Massive acronym. Hopefully everyone listening knows what the hell I'm talking about. So I think I'm done with articles for that, and I actually haven't pulled together a lot of the input that we've gotten from the community. I've been listening to it, commenting on it, but I haven't put them into the final articles. So I'm going to be doing a lot of editing this weekend and early next week, and that's going to be wrapping up very soon. With the idea being, let's let as many people know about this as possible, get it out there in the hunter community, and see how the community responds. Not everyone's going to like every proposed change, but I've tried to be diplomatic in what I pull in from others' ideas, so that it's not just my own, and without pulling in everything, so that we just have sort of an idea bloat, to borrow a term.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a major area that we haven't touched on that we should. We could keep talking about some nuanced aspects of the class, but we don't want to get too bogged down with the minutia of it, and I also want to go live with this soon, because once we get past like BlizzCon, we'll probably have a lot of things set in stone, and it'll be harder to propose changes at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the whole idea, was to kind of get this out there, make Blizzard aware of it prior to BlizzCon, which is less than a month away now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So be looking for that, and we'll go back to regular news after that. The WHU has been very HCERP centric the last few weeks, but that's been purposeful, and I think it's worked out at a decent time, because we've been a little light on Hunter news, and we're also prior to BlizzCon, when we're going to have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah. And next week would be good. We talked a little bit about some of the raid encounters last week, and we'll do that again. We'll get heavy into that next week, and BRK even expressed interest in. He's been doing a lot of raiding too, so he's going to want to talk about Siege of Orgrimmar as well. So we'll get into some heavy duty stuff, and I'll be, I'm excited to hear what Roger has to say as far as tips and tricks and things for especially the heroic encounters and things, and get his perspective on all that. That's always fun.
Yeah. So, do you want to? We have two sort of news areas that we can talk about here today. The one is the WoW movie. The other is they had a developer roundtable recently to talk about a few things moving forward, but also a lot of sort of developer feedback on what they thought of 5.4 and what they thought they succeeded on or maybe didn't succeed on.
Yeah, let's go to the developer roundtable and talk about that first for a little bit, because that was some interesting stuff there.
Yeah,
and again, it's, like I said, it's more general, but it's always, hey, it's all these things like the Timeless Isle and the Flex Raids, we do them on our hunters, so there is an impact to hunters and how we play the game and our enjoyment of the game. So. Yeah,
much as we love hunters, it's sometimes it would be irresponsible to only talk about things if they don't touch the other classes. So yeah, the very first, and I thought of transitioning to this because we were just talking about sort of heroic rating and the different levels of rating and whatnot, and apparently over 50% of flex raids last week had 2 or more raid sizes. So people are making use of the flexible nature of flex rating, which is a good sign. I took that to mean that they're happy with how it's working, and they think that it's a good change. And I would absolutely agree. I love the idea of flex raids.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of flex rating. In fact, that's mostly what I've been doing, that and LFR, and I think that was almost going to be my suggestion for the sort of the question of the week to the chat room, which would be like, fill in the blank here. I will stop doing LFR when, and it'd be things like, well, maybe when I get all my Titan runestones and don't need any gear, because LFR is just it's just dreck. I mean, I can't stand it. But flex rating is just the complete opposite. It is a lot of fun, especially if you go in there with a group of people that you can, it's the level of difficulty's not super hard, but you can't ignore the mechanics. You do have to pay attention. You do have to know the strategies and still execute them, or else you're going to wipe here and there. I mean,
yeah.
But by the same token, it's not progression in the sense that you're going to be banging your head against the wall for 3 hours. No, you're going to go raid for 3, maybe 4 hours, and you're going to kill everything for the most part.
Yeah,
and you're going to get some decent gear out of it and have a good time.
Right, and work your way up if you're maybe a progression guild that goes a little bit more slowly, or you need to get into it first, so then you can work your way up to normals and heroics. So it's a nice way to do that in a more casual environment that isn't LFR.
and then like you say, the big thing too is the flexible size. You're not locked into 10. You're not locked into 25, and you can go with sort of all points in between, as long as you have a decent ratio of healers and DPS. I mean, the tank numbers are still the same. You basically need 2 tanks for the encounters, but other than that, you're just filling in, whoever's available, and you queue for it too, which is nice, and you can do it. And I almost wonder if they'll, if you do normal or heroic, unless you're extending your lockouts, you have to start from the beginning every week. Whereas with the flex, you can just choose a wing and a set of bosses and start wherever you want, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about it, and it doesn't look like it's going to be going away based on this feedback, which is
no,
good
not at all. They'll definitely, and it seems to be, this is an interest. I don't know if they mentioned this in the developer roundtable, but I've noticed if you look at Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm and now Mists of Pandaria, they seem to, in that final patch, is when they seem to sort of unleash a big sort of game-changing feature. And this time it's Flex. Cataclysm introduced LFR, and I think Wrath of the Lich King, I thought they did the group finder with the final patch. That was their big kind of introduction. Somewhere in Wrath they did, and I thought it was at the end. So it's interesting that they sort of seem to have this trend where they wait for that last patch to introduce some big feature that sort of has a huge impact on the game. And I think Flex is I'm sure it's exceeded their expectations and probably exceeded player expectations too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to go. My guild's pretty done for the expansion, unfortunately, but I'd love to try it out personally. And but it's good to see that it's doing well, so that moving forward we're going to see the same thing.
And the nice thing about it too is that it's cross-realm, and you can do it through Open Raid. So you can go to like openraid.com or whatever the address is, and see if you can find a flex raid and go ahead and just participate in that right away. And it's just a lot of more good things than negative things about it, I would say at this point.
The devs also liked the Timeless Isle and how that was handled. So they say it's probably going to be somewhat of a template for endgame world content moving forward. There might be some more structure to it in the future, but the general style of content that avoids pure daily quests worked well, they thought. So if you enjoyed the Timeless Isle, cool, you're going to see more of it. If you didn't enjoy the Timeless Isle, not so cool, you're going to see more of it. But that method for the non-rating part of endgame stuff, they seem to enjoy it.
I'm not sure how I feel about the Timeless Isle. I mean, I'm more or less done with it at this point, I guess. So I don't know how sustaining it was. It's not a bad place. I'll go down there if I need to kill time. So if I'm in an LFR queue or something, I'll go to the Timeless Isle just to kill some time.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people end up using it for these days, I think.
But for the most part, I'm not that into the reputation. They have a reputation. The Shao Emperor reputation, and you can only gain it by killing specific mobs on the island. You don't get it through raiding or anything else, and it's a real grind, and the rewards they're more cosmetic and things in nature, so I don't even find them, to me personally, I don't find them that appealing. So I don't, grinding out that rep isn't something I feel like doing. And other than that, it's just running around looking for a few rares. One of them, there's a Cloud Serpent Hualan, who drops a mount. So that's a very popular mob to try and camp in. And the way the rare system works is anybody who hits it, will be able to get loot off of it, so it's well done. But beyond that, that's about all. The only thing I'm really chasing on the island at this point. I don't even need the timeless coins for much of anything. I'm pretty much done with the... I don't know if you're aware, too. it's a great way to gear up your characters, your alts, and you just get this BOA timeless gear, which is 496 eye
Yep.
level.
Yeah, they've really made it nice for alts here at the end of. So if you want to bring them along quickly, it doesn't take that much time with stuff like this.
No, and then they have these other items, the Burdens of Eternity, which you can use to upgrade that gear to 535 item level, which is pretty good. But I'm even at the point now where I've gotten all the timeless pieces that I could possibly use at this point, so I'm not even chasing that. So there's not much left to do on the island itself for me.
Well, but it's been out for a little bit now, so that it's not going to be a forever thing for a lot of players who are doing it, doing their stuff pretty regularly.
The one thing one thing to add about that, the one thing I really did love though is those mobs just drop the little elder charms left and right, and those are the coins you need to turn in 50 of them each week to get your Warforged seals, which you can get the bonus roll. And so I don't know, last time I looked I had about 14 weeks worth of those coins in my inventory. I mean, I'm set to get Warforged seals for the next 14 weeks now if I do nothing. So I like the way they did that. Before they tied those into daily quests, and if you didn't do dailies, you weren't getting your elder coins and weren't getting
there were
bonus
so
rolls.
many dailies. The beginning of the expansion was atrocious with that stuff. That was maybe my biggest complaint about MOP was the just absolute slog of all the different dailies if you wanted to keep up with everything.
Yeah, I burned out on dailies after 5.0, and when 5.1 came about, I was done. I didn't really have it in me to grind more dailies, and which is what they introduced, and I really fell behind at that point. Fell behind a point on dailies, fell behind a point on the legendary quest line, which I'm actually catching up on that now. I'm at the point where I need to get Titan rune forges, I guess. So it's approaching the end of that journey. So I'll get the legendary here maybe in another month, I'm hoping, if not sooner. So yeah, excited about that. I will say this about the legendary. If there are any hunters out there who are still picking that up, there's one piece of it right before you get your epic metagem, where you have to engage the world boss on the Thunder Island Nalak, and you basically toss a spear and it spawns an ad, and you need to kite the ad. But nobody's running that boss anymore, right? I mean, no one's actively killing it. But as a hunter, you can just toss the spear at Nalak, feign death. He'll despawn, but the ad won't, and you're good. It's the easiest thing ever.
Oh, wow.
So I would just toss that out there. I was very pleased to read about that and then try that, and yeah, that made that particular piece of the journey very, very easy.
Yeah, all the neat little hunter tricks that we have that nobody else does.
Yes.
So there have been a few fun things over the years that we've been able to do with Feign Death, but that's another cool one. Let's see, what else did they talk about? They did say, so they talked a little bit about storage, like bag storage.
Yes, which I am running out of every day. It's annoying.
They did say, okay, heirlooms are taking up a lot of space, so a centralized storage like the one used for pets and mounts is being worked on. So that's good news. So we don't have to keep storing all the different heirlooms. The toy items added in Mists of Pandaria also take up a lot of space, so a similar solution for that would also be ideal. That isn't saying that they're working on it, but they did say that a similar solution would be ideal. So I think that's something that we might see eventually, where you go to sort of a sub-menu to look at your toys, your heirlooms, and hell, they might find some different types of things that they can work into a similar format. And this is all part of the interface, which would be really nice, I think, especially with the toys, because I think everyone's had to get rid of a toy at some point if you try to hoard them, because there's just too many of them with everything else that we have to keep. But they did also say, as far as storage space goes in general, choosing what to keep is part of the gameplay. No matter how much bag space players are given, it will always end up being full. So they're never going to make it where we can just hoard anything we ever get, but they're looking for some ways for items that are causing more problems to make that a little easier to manage.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think something for the toys is necessary. And I understand you can't keep everything, but it's hard to prioritize sometimes. Some of those gadgets are things that come from quests.
Yeah.
And they're bound to your character. And if you delete it, you'll never, ever be able to get them back again. And I have tons of stuff like that where I'll never use it. I don't carry it around with me, but I don't want to get rid of it because I can never get it again. And it's just, there's some trinkets and things like that. So I think something for those toys, and they would be good. And they introduced a ton of them in this expansion.
They really did.
I mean,
yeah, take a drink.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I mean, they did. There's just puntable gnomes, and I'm not even done. And there's still ones I'm still trying to get. I still want to. There's something called the Memory of Mr. Smite, which I like, and I've been trying to get that for the last few weeks now, with no success.
Speaking of gnomes, I read one of these items down here, and I love it. I read most of this, and I must have accidentally skipped this one. And it said, I'm sorry, though. Were you done with what you were?
Did I say puntable gnomes? Is that
You did.
I didn't. Oh, it's a Freudian slip, I guess. No, it wasn't the punt. They didn't give us introduce puntable gnomes.
I was like, where is that? But let's go ahead and make fun of gnomes some more. That's where I was headed after that comment.
It was the puntable marmot, which is
Okay.
no different than a gnome marmot.
That
Same
I
thing,
know.
right?
That I got. I know what that is. What the hell do we have a puntable gnome? That's magnificent. I'm gonna go do that quest line.
That's probably the horse side version.
Yeah. So they did say the gnome race didn't exist when the original WoW cinematic was being worked on, which is why they didn't appear in it. Sure, keep telling yourself that, Blizzard.
I know,
And
right?
There hasn't been a good opportunity to showcase gnomes in a cinematic since then. So basically, they've had nothing useful to do with gnomes since the beginning of the game, is what they're saying.
I don't understand that. I guess I can understand. I guess they're talking expansion cinematics, but there have probably been plenty of opportunities to introduce them everywhere. I mean, we had the whole retaking of Gnomergon. I don't know if they did a video for that to introduce those patches. Siege of Orgrimmar, the gnomes have they get their due. There's one scene in there where they come and wreck this place full of orcs and stuff, as you're going through it. It's like a little, I don't want to say it's an event, but it's sort of like an intermission. It's a nice. They basically, the gnomes come in with their helicopters and the High King, and they take out all this bunch of trash for you, basically, before one of the bosses. So, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Gnomes do still provide the coolest vehicles in the game, I think.
I mean, honestly, if they were going to introduce gnomes into a cinematic, you'd think the Cataclysm one was the one where they could have done it. I understand, and maybe Burning Crusade were the only two. I mean, the Arthas one. Wrath of the Lich King, that was just complete Arthas focus. So yeah, you weren't going to get gnomes in that, and at least with the way they chose to go down the path from Mists of Pandaria, it makes sense. Not to include the gnomes there, but Cataclysm was all about everybody. So you think they could have squeezed it in there if they tried a little harder?
Yeah, but they didn't feel like it. I understand. You got to focus on important stuff in the game, not gnomes. So I know I'm offending somebody, but oh well.
Well, one of the things to get back to the storage space is that they recommended over on Euripides' old podcast was to do the self-guild bank, because that gives you so much more extra space. But a lot of this stuff, they would just make it account bound as opposed to, like,
that's a
one person bound.
Exactly.
Then you could shift things over to a mule with a bank and store things that way, and that would help a lot.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, because you are allowed a certain number of characters on a realm, and which comes with a certain amount of innate storage. So what does it matter what you store in there, right? So I kind of agree with that. It'd be nice if you could just have one general storage area and could put all your stuff in there.
You rent out a shack.
I mean, the void storage was nice, but it really clearly wasn't big enough. I mean, I filled that up pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, I saved that for. I had a few items that I really enjoyed. Gold Dark Moon cards, a couple weapons that I had gotten that looked cool, but mostly it was just all my tier pieces that I had collected. That's the only thing. So I haven't quite filled up my void storage, but I would probably get there if I keep raiding like into the next expansion.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly have tier pieces. It's tier pieces, toys like gadgets, gizmos, like a few of the trinkets from the world event that led up to the Wrath of the Lich King. There were some items there. One of which was one was a cool trinket. It summons like a little paladin to fight for you, and then he bubble hearts when he's done. But I've got that and some of the holiday clothing and things you got from the holiday event.
Oh, okay.
So that's
yeah.
Brewfest mugs and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, those were always fun to collect.
But like I said, that's what's taking up my space. And I guess I could delete those things because I could probably go and get them back if I really wanted to. But I don't know. I'm just sort of a giant pack rat and hoard things.
Or the horde.
It's the same with our staples, honestly. It's like what do you keep and which ones do you let go.
Mm-hmm. Although they did increase the stable slot. The stable slot, I would say our stable slots are completely manageable at this point. I even have come close now at this point to filling them up. I've got like 2 pages of empty stable slots that I haven't just gotten around to going taming things. When this patch came out, I decided to go tame the 3 new spirit beasts that the porcupines that came out previously, and I went and got those, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think right now nobody can really complain too much about stable slots. There are some collectors who are always going to want more, but I think for the vast majority of us, we're in a pretty good place with, hey, do you want this? Cool, let's go tame it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only, even if you have all spirit beasts, you still have plenty of room, which I do. I mean, you still have plenty of room for other things. You still have plenty of room.
You have all the spirit beasts?
Yes, I don't know how many. How many are there? I have all of them though.
Wow.
Yes.
I don't. I might have like 3. I was never a big pet collector though.
Yeah, I like the spirit beast. So somewhere easier to get than others. The 3 new ones just have the taming challenges, so they're pretty much always up 100% of the time. You just need to go out and grab those. But the others I had gotten by the end of Cataclysm. But I said even with that, and with all the pets that bring the raid buffs, I still have almost 2 pages of empty slots for me to just pick and choose whatever I want. So unless you're someone that needs to have every type of cat in every color available, you shouldn't have too much trouble with your stables at this point.
Yeah, really.
And there's probably someone that wants every type of cat in every possible color.
Of course. Well, and it also helps. I made a post at one point that was, okay, so here's all the pets to have all the different buffs that you might want for a raid. Here's a few others that you might want for various situations, so like a turtle or a beetle for the damage mitigation in case you're doing some soloing where you want your pet to stay alive a lot longer. And when you got to the end of having every pet that could have some use, you had like 3 or 4 slots to play with. So if you were trying to be practical about your stable, you really didn't have a whole lot of room to play, and now you do, and I think that's just the point. So you still have to make choices if you're a big collector, but it's not going to be quite as unfair if you're trying to do both serious and casual pet collecting.
It's not like Wrath of the Lich King, where towards the end there, they had 4 spirit beasts in the game, and you had 5 stable slots and 4 spirit beasts. So if you wanted to have all the spirit beasts, you were left with 1 option, and thankfully the wolf was like the only pet you needed. But had it not been the case, you'd have really had been in a you'd have been in a tough spot.
Yeah, really. I say we go back to the vanilla model where different pets had different attack speeds and stuff, even of the same models. And
oh, that's right. You had to go.
Terrible.
There was that one in the Badlands. Broken Tooth, or I forget what his name was, that one cat that everybody wanted to have. There was the raptor from the Barrens. I mean, yeah. And not only that, and then you had to go tame different pets to learn abilities, too. That was always fun.
Yeah, that was pretty terrible.
So you had to keep 1 slot free just to tame something.
When you say fun, I think you mean torture. That was one of the better things they did away with years ago.
Yeah, the ability, the whole where we are now with pets is probably where we need to be. The only thing I can think of that they could do to improve it at this point would be to allow it so that you didn't have to be that each of the specs could bring all the buffs, basically, that you weren't locking certain buffs to exotic pets only. That's about the only thing I would change at this point.
Yep. Well, and let's see. So BlizzCon will have, quote, an exciting glimpse into the future of WoW, unquote, as well as a live raid, which that'll be fun. So it'll probably be really rough, but it looks like we're going to get a lot of announcements about things that'll be coming down the pipeline for the next expansion. And we've had this in the past where they have like the 4 or 5 big new things that they're implementing that they think will be cool and that will sort of galvanize the community behind the next expansion. So yeah, we will have a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Hopefully it's as awesome as some of this. Hopefully they're able to say, yeah, we're going to have an inventory list for toys so it doesn't have to be in your inventory. And maybe it's as cool as something like flex rating. So some of it might not be. It might be smaller stuff, but it sounds like they have some big things planned.
Yeah, and like I said, the expectation is they will do the announcement of the next expansion, and usually that comes with some sort of trailer to introduce it, which is always fun to watch, and then they'll list some of the features. They should talk about some of the class changes they have in mind. They usually talk about any new battlegrounds as well as maybe hints of whatever new 5-man dungeons and whatever new raids.
And I'm sure we'll have a name for it as well.
Yeah, of course, a name for it, and they'll probably also talk about with next year, 2014, being WoW's 10th anniversary, so they'll probably have a lot planned, a lot going on.
Oh yeah,
it'll be a good time. I think that combined with another expansion make next year probably a fun year to be playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and the movie, although that doesn't come out until 2015.
Yeah, the movie's still a little ways out, but.
Yeah, we're about 2 years away from the movie at this point, so filming will start next year, but it's coming out in 2015.
Yeah, I hope they just don't get trying too cutesy and do some sort of expansion / movie tie-in of some kind. I don't think they will, because it sounds like the movie maybe takes place during events prior to where we are now, which is good, but. You never know, right?
Yeah. Speaking of the movie, we have we do know a few of the people that will be in it, and some other rumored cast, and so more and more is coming out about it. We talked about Colin Farrell; he's kind of the biggest name attached, rumored to be attached at this point. Paula Patton, I don't know actors and actresses, so I'm gonna be completely clueless here. Married to Robin Thicke. Also don't know. Wasn't he the guy that did the? Wasn't he on stage with the twerking?
Yeah, that was. I was gonna say. I believe so.
Yeah. I'm so sad that I actually know that. So directed by Duncan Jones, and the costume designer worked on Avatar, World War Z, Apocalyptico, John Carter. So a fair amount of sort of sci-fi action adventure things. And let's see, the set designer worked on Battlestar Galactica, Eureka, Wolverine Origins, White House Down, The A-Team, Hot Tub Time Machine.
The stunt designer did all the Batman movies and Titanic and a whole bunch of other things. So that looks good at least too.
And it's set to film in Canada. So at least part of it'll probably go to various locations. I can't imagine that they'll get, but I believe it's confirmed that they're going to be filming at least some location shots in Vancouver.
Well, yeah, that makes sense to me. I think based on the person I sort of spoke to, who lives in Canada, that sounds about right. Sounds like they're there now. They've invaded Canada and are setting up shop and getting ready to kick this thing off.
Yeah. So Ali sort of added show notes to these casting rumors. Paul Dano, apparently looks like a hobbit. Anson Mount, who he's sort of a... Yeah, Ali says that must be Varian, and he looks very much like someone who could play Varian. But, let's see, Travis Fimmel, don't know him.
But look at his face. He looks like Arthas. Look at those eyes.
I thought Arthas was going to be a little kid in the movie, though.
But look at him. Doesn't he look like Arthas?
I guess. I mean, he's not animated. He's a real person. So
Well, two of the
I'm
six
being
they've got
difficult.
here do look like hobbits is the problem, and I don't see how that's going to work. 'Cause,
They're gonna play dwarves. It'll be
Yeah.
be close enough.
well, maybe.
So this is terrible because we're talking about these people as we look at their pictures and like nobody else can see it. Go to the
Well,
IMDb page. Go to the IMDb page.
Yeah, look up Warcraft IMDb 2015, and you'll see all the rumored information there.
Yeah, most of the people that are in the rumored cast are from action movies like Mission Impossible and things like that. So that's good. It won't be like an episode 1 political drama or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just don't know what Paula Patton could possibly play because she doesn't have that sweet, innocent Jaina look, and there's not that many other females in World of Warcraft.
This is Hollywood, and I don't know. I mean, they might just turn Jaina into like a sultry vixen.
Well, keep in mind too, it's not just Alliance. There's Horde and Alliance. So there's you can slap some makeup on people and have to turn some of these people into orcs and Tauren and trolls and things. So we don't know that they'd all be playing humans and whatnot. They could be playing other things.
I think Colin Farrell has the accent for a dwarf and the natural accent for a dwarf. So maybe he'll play.
Anton Yelchin, who plays Chekhov in the Star Trek movies, he's obviously the Draenei.
I could see that.
Probably a short Draenei, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They can give him boots.
Right. And get the head things, the space, Sure, space goats come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Ooh, and we got a question/email from no less than President Obama. Hello, good-looking hunters. Hello there yourself, sir. I think my friend Colin, apparently he's friends with Colin Farrell, would be good as Arthas. Really? Okay. Who am I to argue? And I feel that we could resolve the fiscal crisis if more Republicans played hunters. How can I persuade them to switch from Feral Druid? That is probably the best question/comment we've received in some time.
Yeah, it is. Maybe they get the whole government to play a hunter in World of Warcraft. Well, the world would be a much better place. Well, America would be a much better place.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Most politicians on either side would probably be rogues. So let's go bipartisan here and just speak to the political stereotype in general. I'm pretty sure they would be rogues.
That's right. We can just eliminate the Republicans and Democrats, replace them with Horde and Alliance, and then they would just,
Oh, man. Bring your war axe to the Senate.
Make them dress up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, as someone who works for the government, I would like to go back to work, although I have been playing a lot of World of Warcraft and getting a lot of things done around the house, but I would like to go back to work now. I'm ready.
Yeah, it's getting close to the default on our loans, so that's the thing they're all scared about. So they're trying to push so that they get something in place before that happens, which I believe is I want to say the 20th that happens.
Yeah, I don't know, the 17th. It's all next week.
Okay. Yeah, so hopefully we see something happen in the next week or so, and even if it means Obama can't join us on the podcast.
Yeah. We haven't actually formally extended him an invitation, but I just.
Yeah. What in the world would we talk to him about? It's like, sorry guys, we have to talk politics here. We have the frickin' POTUS on the show.
Well, we talk like Horde politics, like what's going on with Thrall and Garrosh and that whole mess, and how would he have handled that? And if he were Thrall, what would he have done?
Oh my goodness!
Who does he think should be war chief?
A WoW AMA with Obama. We should. You know what? I bet you there's some celebrities that actually play WoW, like not just the ones they show on the commercials.
Oh, sure.
I bet if we had just for years canvassed various celebrities that we think might play, we could have gotten someone at some point, but it would have been way more work than it was worth. So.
I think a couple months ago on the Colbert Report they were talking about some local politician from Vermont. I think she was running for maybe the state legislature, and her opponent was putting out ads that she played World of Warcraft to show that she was unfit for.
I remember that.
And I think she won.
Yeah, I don't know if she won, but she played a rogue, and they tried
She
to
did
make
play
a
a
big
rogue.
deal about that. About her, enjoying. Maybe had some quotes about her talking about the game, and how she enjoyed stabbing people or something. It was ridiculous, utterly ridiculous.
Well, the funniest comment I saw. So that story breaks, and I go. I go online to do my dailies or whatever, and I'm talking, and our guild leader is plays a rogue as his main. And I'm telling him this, and he's like, "Well, they got a point. I wouldn't vote for a rogue. You're supposed to defend your class." He's like, "No, I wouldn't vote for any rogue. I wouldn't vote for myself. I know what I'm like." So that was like a ringing endorsement of the criticism of this lady playing WoW from a fellow rogue who's also a normally rational guild leader. So I found that pretty hilarious. He's like, "No, that is absolutely correct. You shouldn't vote for her. She plays a rogue." Obviously, it was ridiculous, but yeah, I do remember when that made headlines. But I would feel better if they had played a hunter, or even some of the other classes that are less deplorable than rogues.
Mm-hmm.
Death Knight.
Yeah, I could handle. I'm trying to think the ones that I wouldn't like. Like Paladin, Rogue. Those might be the only two. Everything else, maybe no, not even Warrior. I think Paladin and Rogue are my two most reviled classes. For various reasons.
Well, Joe B slipped in a question at the last second. If you want to go to that one.
Question is, would you have a problem if a character in the film performed, say, arcane blast and then used the light, i.e., not stay within the game dynamic? Oh, okay. So your question's kind of a general one, i.e., what happens if they do something that doesn't necessarily meet with the canon of the game world? I'll tell you.
In other words, like a mage who could, have some sort of ability from another class or something like that, I guess. Or
yeah, if they just pull an ability out of nowhere that doesn't have a corollary within the game world, either the Warcraft games or the World of Warcraft game, I'll tell you my answer, and it's that it wouldn't really bother me, but it would bother a lot of people. So the community in general, I feel like, is going to be scrutinizing this with a magnifying glass, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, because in different mediums, you have to play to that medium. So as long as you're keeping the spirit of whatever it is, whatever story it is that you're telling, as long as you keep that credible, then you're going to be okay, and you can change some individual elements of story or character, or in this case, sort of spells and abilities, because they're not all going to fit into a movie context the same way that they will in a game. So there will have to be some concessions that need to be made in order to make it work as a movie. The mediums aren't one-to-one, and it doesn't always translate perfectly if you do a completely accurate transcription of a game world into a movie world, or whether it's TV, games, comic books deal with this all the time because of the comic movies that come out. As long as you're keeping the spirit of the characters and the story, and the classes, I suppose, too, correct, it wouldn't bother me at all. That said, it would probably enrage a lot of people, but I think that a lot of that type of outrage is pretty short-sighted when it comes to things. There's a point at which you're sort of leaving the spirit of the source material. That's where I'd start to take issue. But with a lot of the sort of more cursory details of the classes, it wouldn't bother me at all to see them changed.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
It does bring up a question, kind of. If they have one of the players or one of the characters in the movie as a hunter, they have to have a pet. That just goes without saying.
Right.
But a lot of the pets that are available, like a dinosaur, would look dumb in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they did a wolf or a cat, a tiger, or a bird, probably a bird, what would they do?
Yeah, I would think it would have to be something along the lines, like I say, something more simple, like a bear or a lion or a tiger or something along those lines. Perhaps they might do it, but I agree, like a raptor, probably not, or or a spirit beast, for example. I wouldn't anticipate something that magical.
And all the CGI they'd have to do on a spirit beast. They could do a monkey if they were doing. If it's a really gritty kind of movie and they needed some comic relief, they could do a monkey.
They could. They could. They could make a character that can sort of like has sort of an empathic relationship with animals in general, so that you could have a hunter character and maybe they have a familiar, maybe they have one animal that sort of follows them around, but they're able to interact with others. I think that might be an interesting way to handle the multiple pet dynamic. So, okay, I'm going to talk to the birds here and see what they can tell me by flying through the air, but my cat is my primary pet. That's the only one that has a name and that comes around with me and stuff. So I think there's different ways that they could handle it with hunters, and several of which I'd be okay with.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, and I'm not even so sure how, if they'll even go strictly with classes more so than
you'll be able to tell. They'll have to
the
go
various
with classes.
races. I would think you'd have to have some sort of magical, something like a mage or something like a warlock, for example. I think they would have to do those things, but I think other than that, but I don't know that they'd have a shadow priest, for example, or maybe you'd want to have a shaman or something in there. But they're not going to be tanking DPS and healing in the movie. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's not going to be one giant live action raid.
Which would be funny, but again, that wouldn't translate to film well.
No.
So I think you're right. It's going to be more dynamic action sequences where everyone's doing a variety of different things that are playing a major role. It's not going to be, oh, this guy runs in and is tanking the boss, and there's a guy standing back there shooting arrows. No, it won't be. That won't be it at all. And I think if it is, it'll be pretty terrible.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think it's going to be more Lords of the Rings type stuff where you might have big battles with swords and axes and maybe some people doing some magic or something, but along just battling armies of undead and things of that nature, perhaps.
I'm sure they'll have a buttload of Easter eggs for players, though, which will be a lot of fun.
So you guys think it's going to be like a group going through this together, or not, or more like a single or two-player combination?
I think it'll be. I think it's a little bit too early to speculate, to be honest. Just because we don't have I haven't seen sort of a plot synopsis or even what story they're going to be, or even what story they're going to be covering. I think at that point we'll be able to tackle that a little bit more.
Fair enough.
But I think it'll be somewhat group oriented. I mean, certainly would have to be Alliance versus Horde or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the way the dynamics is sort of played out in these, you have the Alliance and the Horde, there's two factions, and then there's this common enemy that they both want to wipe out for whatever different reasons, although they don't necessarily cooperate to defeat them. But
yeah,
that sort of seems to be the dynamic.
Yeah, I would love if they just trolled everyone too. So you go to BlizzCon and they have the big announcement: World of Warcraft movie. Rise of the Murlocs, something like that. That would be awesome. Everyone would just be, there'd be riots, but just something like that. Or if they did that as a joke and then they said, oh no, sorry, here's the real one.
If anything, it'd probably be trolls, because trolls were the dominant enemy for so long before the Horde showed up. Especially against the elves, but all the human kingdoms would have been sandwiched between the trolls as well.
I had forgotten all that. Like you're pulling up lore bits.
Lore, I know, the L word.
It's okay. You're our lore person here.
Yes.
Well, I still have the question about where all the other 5 human kingdoms went to, because they're still around. They just got like ogres standing all over them and stuff like that. But the people were still somewhere. They didn't all go to Stormwind. So I think they should reform the human alliances. But I don't think they're going to do that because Varian's so dominant now.
Yeah.
That's kind of a shame, though.
There was talk at one point about like a third faction, but I don't think it ever really materialized.
Mm-hmm. Well, not as a third faction, but just the humans would have, they had 5 kingdoms before, and so they would just have 3 or 4 again, if they ever took back Stromgard Keep and the other ones. But I kind of think Lordaeron's kind of lost, but
yeah,
that could just be me.
Well, there's that invincible hunter. So.
So it's like Lordaeron, like their
Regarding-
central hub. Is that where was the predominantly where the humans were, or?
And that becomes
Well, they were all
that becomes
over.
Undercity, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's now the invincible hunter stalking the depths underneath. So Sylvanas there.
Yeah. But they had the one over in what's the name of that place? The one across the bridge, the broken bridge from the dwarves. That zone there that they hardly ever touch. It has the keep. That was one of the human strongholds. And then up in the hills, the Arathi Hills, there was another where all the ogres are.
Oh
That
yeah.
was another one of the human kingdoms.
Really? Okay.
And there
I
was
didn't know that.
Lordaeron. And Stratholme was probably part of Lordaeron. But there used to be a quest where you'd go, and both the Horde and the Alliance had a version of it, with these two brothers that were fighting over who was going to get the deed to their kingdom, and they had various little townlets listed as deeds they had owned at one time in that area. So, and of course there was Gilneas, which is kind of not doing so well these days. But you know, I just kind of like to see a little more humans not being just so Stormwind based. But that's just me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try to give. They got the various cities for the different races. So I don't know that they'll give, especially since Stormwind's already so dominant. I don't know that giving the humans another place would necessarily be the wisest.
Yeah.
In terms of just balance. Although
Yeah.
humans are pretty popular. I think they're still the most popular class, at least on the Alliance. I don't know about overall.
So shall we screw up the outro?
Yeah, I think it's done. And remember that next week we have Roger Brown from Method. We'll be going real in depth into Siege of Orgrimmar, tips, tricks, tactics, and feedback. So if you have questions for Roger, please email them to us at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com. And with that, you have been listening to episode 190 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Arth from the Warcraft Hunters Union.
And I'm Darkbrew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
And I'm Alexander from the Hunting Party Podcast. Check us out on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or add our RSS feed to your reader. Links available on the show notes.
That was on purpose. Also, if you like us, please don't be shy about leaving us a review on iTunes or YouTube, especially one where you mention how many score bets you keep stapling. You can submit a title for this show by emailing us at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com and have your name mangled on air by professionals.
Stay thirsty, my friends, and remember to drink your dark brew lager.
For the Horde.
And Nerd Canada.
I can jump shot. BM, MM, and SV. I can rock out any tree. Never worried about my threat, 'cause I've got FD and misdirect. Catching loose mobs in my traps. I never miss, 'cause I am hit capped. 'Cause I'm the hunter, not the marked. I'm the fighter, not the spark. I'm the kiter, not the kite. I'll top meters every fight. Rated NK dealing death. Just me, my gun, and my trusty bed. Now let's begin with Illidan, Osirian, and Gil'jadan, Magdamar, Asgalor, Gruul, Cthulhu, and Razorgore, Onyxia to Ragnaros. Which one have we killed the most? Kel'Thuzad to Malygos. We even killed Akama's ghost. Feels like we're getting close, all that running as a ghost. Yogg-Saron, Nefarian, Sartharian, Nightthorian, yourself, you're on